with the release of Defenders just around the corner, I thought it'd be a good time to release the previous Netflix Marvel shows, and I'm just going to go through them all really quickly instead of trying to do each individual season because that would just take forever. So I'm just going to go through them all, list them all, let you know if it's worth watching and if therefore the Defenders is worth watching. So I'm just going to start by listing the shows in my order, so as in from most favourite to least favourite, and it may piss a few people off because I have Daredevil, then Jessica Jones, then Iron Fist, then Luke Cage. And I know that some people are going to get really angry about that, but I'll explain exactly why they're in that order. So we'll start with the review of Daredevil. Daredevil is an amazing Netflix show. It's got amazing directors. It's got a great cast. Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin was just so good. He put another side to the Kingpin that isn't actually there in the comics, and I really liked the way that he portrayed it. I thought it was really good. Charlie Cox's Daredevil, also a really good job. The show runs on a line where it's just violent enough that it hits that MA rating that they were looking for, but it's not overly violent. It's artistic in the way that it does it, until you get into the Punisher stuff in the second season, and it gets a little bit violent in areas, but it's not really gratuitous in most areas. Some of it's a bit cringy, or makes you cringe when you're watching it, going, that would hurt, but it's never really that bad. The show is just full adrenaline from start to finish. It had me captivated the entire time. I can't express how much more I really loved the Daredevil Netflix show, and I am super looking forward to season 3. Jessica Jones, on the other hand, it's not a violent show. It's got its MA rating for different reasons, generally the adult themes that if I discuss in this, it kind of ruins the show, but just beware that there are definitely adult themes in Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones is not adrenaline pumped the entire time. It's a detective show. She's a detective. She's trying to find people and work stuff out. Like, that's how the show goes. But in my opinion, it started really well. It had a bit of a boring middle bit, and it had a really good ending. For me, it just kind of lulled in the center, and that may be because it was trying to fill too many episodes. I'm not entirely sure. I think some of the seasons outside of Daredevil do have that issue where they're just trying to fill 13 episodes, and maybe if they brought it back to 10, it'd be a little bit better, but that's just my opinion again. Kristen Ritter does a great job as Jessica Jones, but the standout in the show is David Tennant. And that's probably why it's definitely rated below Daredevil, in my opinion, because the bad guy is so much more interesting than the main character, and that is generally a bad thing, I think. I mean, he's a really interesting character, but whenever he's not in the show's kind of boring to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I still really like the show. The show does have some sex scenes and stuff in it, unlike Daredevil, so be aware of that when you're going in. But it doesn't have the violence and stuff that Daredevil has, so depending upon what you are or are not into, there you go. Now to the controversial subject of which is better, Luke Cage or the Iron Fist. I personally think Iron Fist is better, and I'll explain why. While they both have their downsides, my issues with Luke Cage are the fact that he's a boring character to me. He is invulnerable. He can his whole fighting thing is I just walk through a place swatting people like lazy flies. That's not interesting to watch. I found all the fight scenes and action scenes in the show really boring. I thought it was great when he was paired up with Jessica Jones and they were doing stuff together, because there's still a thing where he has to try and protect someone. So I think he's probably going to be a better character for me when he's in the Defenders. But by himself, I just didn't care watching him because there's no downside to anything he does. The dude's a god. Like, it's just kind of like a lot of people have their problems with Superman, where he's invulnerable, so who cares? It's not like anything can hurt him, and they just have to keep bringing up bigger and bigger stuff to try fight him, and it just didn't work for me. Now, the villains in the show, being Cottonmouth and Black Maria, they are really good villains. Now, when Cottonmouth is no longer in the show, I find the show a little bit more boring, but the things I was really interested in was actually their backstory more than Luke Cage. When they did flashbacks of them, when they were during their upbringing and what they had to go through and what made them into the people they are today, I would watch an entire show around that. I thought that was really well done. But it's not enough of the show to keep me interested. It focused obviously on Luke Cage, because Luke Cage is the main character. And Luke Cage being an invulnerable muscle machine that just walks around and wins everything, kind of boring to me. The reason why Iron Fist wins over Luke Cage is because I found Iron Fist's character a little bit more compelling, because he could still get beaten and stuff would still happen. The show, of course, does have its own awful problems. The show, in my opinion, is great at the beginning when you're trying to work out, or he's trying to show who he is. He's come back, he's been dead for years. He comes back, he's trying to prove to everybody that he is who he says he is, and I found that part of the show really interesting. Once you get past that and move into the fact that everybody now knows who he is, that's where it kind of gets boring. It does pick up in the end again, but you've got that same issue with Jessica Jones where it kind of is good in the beginning and interesting, and then it kind of, and then it's good in the end again. But I think it could have probably would have been helpful to make it a few less episodes and just keep it a little bit more compact, in my opinion, just to make it a little bit more faster paced, because the middle of it is kind of boring. When you've got a mystic martial arts character and a lot of the show is filled in with lawyers talking about cases, you start to wonder exactly what direction they were trying to take the show in. Was it supposed to be a lawyer show, or was it supposed to be a mystic martial arts show? I would have lent towards this one, but the show didn't, so it kind of fell off. So what's in all the shows? Well, you've got violence in all the shows. Daredevil would be the most violent of all of them, and it can be more violent in some circumstances, especially in the second season with the introduction of the Punisher. It definitely gets a little bit more violent on there, but I would never say that it's gratuitous or the fact that it's more than what the MA rating gives it. I think it's still well within its rights. Jessica Jones does have sex scenes in it, one or two, I can't remember. They're a bit awkward. There's no nudity or anything in it because obviously it's Marvel and they're still trying to keep that within the boundaries of Marvel cinematic universe. But they're there for a reason, so I kind of understand why they're there. But I just don't. Still don't know if they were necessary because the whole point of them being there is a bit convoluted, and you only really learn in the end the reason why things and why it was awkward to begin with. But it's still well within the bounds of an MA rating. The other two, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, well within their MA rating. There's barely any swearing in all of them. There's definitely no F-bombs that I remember. So yeah, it's pretty toned down for it. I think the main thing is just adult themes and violence. I think that's the main reason why it has its MA rating. So if you're okay with a few adult themes, Jessica Jones is the main one that has those. But if you're okay with a bit of violence, then these shows are completely fine to watch. All in all, I am super pumped for The Defenders. I loved all of these shows. That's just how I rate them. I still did love all the shows, but I just found that there was two that were a lot more compelling than the other two. I do have a lot of friends who definitely do not agree with me on that one. I mean, most of us, I think, are still think that Daredevil is the best, but some of them rate it Daredevil then Luke Cage, and I'm completely okay with them having that opinion. It's just not my opinion. So there you go, that's what I think of it. Have you seen them? Let me know. Let me know what your list is, like how you rate them from start to finish. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? Are you pumped for The Defenders? Write it down below. If you like the content, feel free to like and or subscribe. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.